I want you to get together.
What does it mean to find Jesus? Are you not inviting in the strongest that has authority over the Nephilim, aka Lucifer? God doesn't need a landline, just my current opinion, says Dr. Hugh Maniel. I'm not sure what you mean when you say, are you not inviting in the strongest that has authority over the Nephilim, aka Lucifer? Lucifer doesn't have the strongest authority over the Nephilim exactly. I mean, first of all, Lucifer is just a title given by Freemasons to describe Satan, basically, as the Lightbringer. Satan is certainly a leader of the rebellion of the angels, but he wasn't the one of the angels that created the Nephilim. That was actually Azazel and Samyaza, who were the leaders of the Watchers who created the Nephilim. And it's possible Azazel and Samyaza sided with Satan or Lucifer, whatever you want to call him, in that rebellion and did that on behalf of Lucifer's bidding. And I understand Lucifer may be the top of the chain, but it's possible the Nephilim really answer to their own parents, which is the Watchers, not Lucifer himself. And even then, what power do they have over the Nephilim exactly? Not much, you know. A nation, well, it's like an army divided among itself won't last, you know. Lucifer, Beelzebub can't cast out Beelzebub, as it said. You know, that's a kingdom that will fall and crumble, isn't it? Jesus has true authority over everything because he is God the Son and the Son of God. You know, he is the ultimate authority in all of this, and the demons flee in his authority and in his name. You know, they when the demons in people saw Jesus, they got to his knee, got bowed down in front of him, and says, "Have you come to us before our time? You know, what have we to do with you, Jesus? Like, why are you here now? Please give us." No, no, we thought we had more time. They were begging him not to cast them out and send them back to the dry places. Please send us into those pigs instead. You know. So it's to say Lucifer has the strongest authority over the Nephilim is just ignorant more than anything. It's naive. Um, and to have a relationship with Jesus is to have a relationship with the Father through him, to have a connection with God. Because God is a holy God and we are not. We fall short. We can't be in the presence of God in our current state. That's kind of what symbolically it meant in when Adam and Eve were cast out of the Garden of Eden in that respect, you know. And since that event, God found a way to bring us back to him, and that's through his son. And, you know, I know the gospel is enough. I know it is. But there was a point where I didn't understand how to explain that. There was a point, not explain that, there's a point before I was saved where I didn't understand it at all. Like, how does a unknowable, unseeable God sending his son to die on a cross for us and be tortured and then rising from the dead save us? I understand how that sounds to the people who aren't saved and don't understand religion. Like that, it sounds weird. Okay, on the surface, it doesn't sound like it makes much sense. You know what I mean? Like I get that most people can't understand that. They don't get it, and I get why they don't get it because it sounds odd. Right? And to get there to understand it, there's a lot of things they have to kind of experience themselves and learn, and there's a lot of stuff about spirituality and spiritual realms and the history of the spirit realm and the things that are there and what we're truly up against spiritual warfare. I think that really provides the context for what it meant to be saved. And even then, people have to understand that, you know, it didn't always necessarily mean being saved from death in a physical sense. It's because death by definition might not just be your body, it's the soul. You know, what is the death of the soul? The flesh is one thing, but the soul and the spirit is another. And he offers eternal life in that respect. But at the same time, in light of this millennial kingdom theory, he was also offering eternal physical life to many people as well who would have accepted him in his time. And those are the resurrected saints who died for him, who got to live forever in perfected bodies, maybe still be living now even and never died. So there is that aspect too. But that isn't to say he also didn't come to save the rest of us. I don't think he leaves anybody behind. And so again, it is complicated, and that's why I know the gospel alone is difficult for people to connect with. They need something. They need something to help bridge that gap for them, so they can understand why it matters that God sent His only begotten Son to die for us. And I have moments now where I listen to John, the Gospel of John, and I listen in the car an audiobook, and when I hear John 3:16. And I know it's pretty cliche because that's the main one, but even then, it's just hearing that alone. That God so loved the world that He sent His only begotten Son to die for us, so that we won't perish but have everlasting life. Like I don't know. Hearing it just it makes me well up. It makes me want to cry, and it gets me right deep in the soul just hearing those words. Because I have all this context to understand how powerful of a thing that truly was and what it really means and how it actually works thoroughly in the system of the world we live in, with the enemies we have against us and the corruption against us, and how Jesus literally came to save us from all of this, and how this world truly is corrupted and fallen, and God has not forsaken us as well. And it's odd. It's odd. It's odd. It's difficult. It's tough. Because again, the word saved again is, what does that mean? To most British people, that's just a football term, just from stopping a ball from going in the net. Like it doesn't. It's odd language, and I think there's a lot of media out there as well that implies anybody who uses these kind of words and languages is like a part of a cult or something, and that's because there are cults out there who use this language in a weird, creepy way as well. So that's another disconnect for the youth who hear Christians speak this way and just think, well, this guy's just clearly a brainwashed cultist or something, So we do need to offer more, and to get them to be receptive to the gospel. It's and again, this is so saith Paul. So thinketh Paul. I'm not saying I with any degree of 100% certainty that my way or the highway type of thing. It's not like that. I'm sincerely here trying to discuss my thoughts on this and find a way to reach more people. And I think that's what my channel really is at the end of the day. This whole channel, Understanding Conspiracy, is an attempt to simplify the message in a way that I know those who are skeptical can relate to. It's a way of presenting the information in a way that's more easily received by those out there who need to hear it being said by a normal person and not some self-righteous zealot. Because I know those things put me off. It's and I don't. It took a lot for me to get past all of that before I could be open to even just considering that the Bible had anything to offer. And it took a long time, and my hope is to shorten that time for other people. That's kind of what I'm aiming for here, and I think it might be working for some, not for others. And not everyone likes my methods. And boy, do they like to tell me they don't like my methods. And not a lot of people think, well, what I do is right. Some people call me of antichrist, or they say I'm blasphemous or heretical for discussing or thinking about certain ideas. Some people accuse me of being a lizard person because my bottom teeth are a little bit jagged, because they overlap each other a little bit because I have crooked teeth. And whatever it is, and some people like to misconstrue my words, and then. And I suppose that just comes with the territory. I don't know what it is exactly, but I just keep focusing on those people who send me messages that tell me it's working and I've helped them. and I've helped their family, or I've helped their children, or I've helped them come out of a certain way. I mean, somebody left me a message actually today, and I'm sure they won't mind me reading this. I think they followed me on Instagram and have talked to me a little bit since. But when I saw the comment, I recognised the story, and I was like, "Oh yeah, I remember you." So let me just quickly get this comment up. But it's just an example of many comments I kind of get centered around this theme, which is also telling me the clown stuff really is working. Like, it's not just it. I know it's working because of comments like this, is what I'm trying to say. So let me just find it quickly. I think the person who commented had a purple avatar, but I think I might need to sorry, I think I might have to actually go into the video comments to actually get it and go to newest. Because sometimes it hides. The YouTube likes to hide comments in the most annoying way. But I found it here. So they said here, I know I told you this before, but I'm going to say it again. I always believed in God, but I was looking for answers in all the wrong places until I found your channel. It must have been about a year ago when I started following your clown series, and I was this close to converting to Hinduism. But it hit me like a ton of bricks that the pantheon of gods were actually just the Nephilim. 6 months ago I was baptized, and I have you to thank for that. God bless you and your family. And I hearing that, it kind of helps me carry on. Amidst those telling me that you're a heretical, blasphemous wolf in sheep's clothing, who's spreading false gospels and messages, and but then when I hear that, it's kind of okay. So I think what I'm doing is working, and I've just stopped somebody from falling into pagan religion and venerating demons, basically, and it's humbling. I don't really enjoy compliments. I'm not very good at taking them. Exactly. I mean, I like receiving them, but I don't know how to react necessarily, and but I get a lot of messages like that you just read. And it's just confirmation for me that I think I'm doing something right. And, someone else sent the message saying, in response to when I was talking about these things, preaching is not obsolete or outdated. It was commanded by our Lord Jesus Christ to preach the gospel to all nations. People may find your speculation interesting, but in the end, they're not going to find faith or comfort from hearing about clowns, Tartaria, or anything else you have to theorize. Faith comes by hearing the word of God preached. That goes for this generation, just as it has for all others throughout history. And it's kind of like, you didn't listen to me, did you? When people make these type of comments, it's kind of, that's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying the gospel isn't enough and stop preaching it, And for them to say, they're not going to find any faith or comfort from hearing about the clowns. Well, I just proved that's wrong from that other comment that I just read to you. Somebody has literally come to Christ and been baptized and has turned away from a possible life of following a false and dead Nephilim religion because of the clowns. And I replied to this person, I didn't say don't preach the gospel, and it isn't fair of you to insinuate that I said that with your comment. I said the new generations are finding it harder to find a way to relate to it in this fallen world today, and we need to find a bridging point that can lead them to the gospel in a way they can actually relate to. The clown research and the topic of spiritual warfare seems to be doing that. But people tend not to actually listen to the words I say sometimes, and they assume I'm purposefully trying to lead people away from Christ or something, and it's kind of like, I don't know how many times I can say on repeat, I'm on your side. I'm not, and it's a kind of it's a no-win situation with these people. It's like, okay, look, I'm not a wolf in sheep's clothing, and then they're like, that's exactly what a wolf in sheep's clothing would say. It's kind of like, look, I'm not a shill. Yeah, typical shill language right there. It's kind of like, I'm not a lizard person. Yeah, yeah, right. I've seen your jagged teeth. Yeah, it's like you would admit to being a lizard person. You cannot win with some of these people. And you can only laugh. You really can only laugh when you get these kind of responses. It's just, what else am I supposed to do? Like, please tell me, what am I supposed to do, really, again, in the light of these type of things, in the face of these type of comments? It's difficult, it's really difficult. Um, anyway, let me check the comments. Let's see what's going on, guys. Sorry, I know I've gone on for a little bit there, and I guess I shared a few things, but I'm just gonna go from the top, and see what happens. We're talking about cameras. Great. That's how I feel about Apple products. There is so much to validate what Paul's exposed, but it isn't anything we should talk about publicly. He says, Ryan McAllister. There's certainly a time and place to discuss the clowns. Absolutely. There is a time and a place for that. I understand that myself, even as the guy who brought the research together, So yeah, definitely be careful. Next, we should focus on what they mimic. Contemplate the beatific vision. I don't know what that means, Ryan. You lost me there in pretentious language. I don't know what you're trying to say there. Sorry. If you can make it clear, that would be great. NASA bought Nikon and discontinued the P1000. Yeah, that's all right, Gary. I've heard that. Yeah, and that's the camera that can zoom in a ridiculous amount and seems to be proving when you zoom in that ships do not disappear over the horizon. You can actually see them clearly once you zoom back in with that camera. Yeah, I remember that. Presenting that there is nothing more punk rock than Jesus. I never got that from religion. It was the opposite, says Anthony Salerno. I'm not sure what that means. But why are your teeth so sharp, though? I know. It's because my parents didn't bother to get me braces when I was young, and by the time the dentist says, "Do you want braces?" I was like a fully grown adult. He was like, "No, I don't want braces now. Why didn't you do this when I was a kid, when it didn't matter?" So yeah, that's why I have crooked bottom teeth, because my dentist was lazy and useless, and I think he was a drunk as well. He always stunk. Yeah, but that's it. I have a different one now, anyway. Conspiracy led me to God and gave the Bible context for me to understand. This happened over the last 15 years. It's only in the last 3 years I can say my faith has been solidified, says Still Prill. Yeah, it's not just, obviously, what I talk about with the clowns is a very niche topic. And my channel is a conspiracy channel first and foremost. I just happen to have also focused further into another niche within the niche of conspiracy, which is the Nephilim and clowns, and making that distinct connection, which other people aren't talking about, within conspiracy Christian research circles. I know there are other channels discussing my work, but as far as Christian conspiracy theorists go, I think I'm the only one. There's a lot of Gnostic or secular thinkers out there who think my work's interesting and talk about it in their own way. But in terms of like bringing, so like I said, I'm a Christian conspiracy theorist channel, so that's a niche in of itself. But I'm also a Nephilim spiritual warfare channel, which is a niche within that niche. And then also I'm specifically talking about the Nephilim and their aesthetics, so it's very focused in. But the point being, just conspiracy alone is a good bridging gap to help anybody understand how God and Jesus is actually real. Because we're basically talking about hardcore Luciferian satanic people ruling the world. And if they believe in the devil, you best believe in the opposite. It's kind of a logical conclusion, isn't it? You eventually get to, with enough research into it all, into just how all-pervasive and pernicious and deep this conspiracy actually goes into every facet of our existence. It's just one thing after another, and you realize that nothing is sacred. everything is corrupted by these people. Everything is under their control, so-called, or so they would like you to think. They're not God. And it's kind of that definitely helps people come to accept that we're in the middle of a spiritual war. But I think it's more so the realization that spiritual things are real and we're in the middle of a war is the thing that gets people. Because as I mentioned in that preface book reading, there isn't a single human being in existence that hasn't suffered at the hands of demonic oppression. Now, don't get me wrong, maybe 60% to 70% of those people haven't realized that that's what's going on. They might not know they're being oppressed, demonically speaking, and there's a spiritual element to their suffering. But rest assured, that is what's happening. And those people who do eventually realize there's something weird going on, there's like a separate personality inside of them that they can't seem to control, but often takes control of them, and when they realize they're doing things but don't understand why they're doing them, it feels like there's another force influencing them to do things they know are bad for them, but still do it anyway, and when people start putting two and two together and start feeling like something's off, in extreme cases, it manifests as mental illness and schizophrenia. They actually start seeing things and hearing the voices and stuff, and obviously the mainstream secular world will try and pass it off as some kind of mental illness and fill you full of drugs. But what we know, most of these things are certainly due to the effects of well, demons that have been allowed to fester due to excessive sin. And I'm not trying to say nobody's perfect at the end of the day. We all sin, but it's that continuation of opening up portals and allowing them in ignorantly or willingly that's causing more and more suffering for individuals. And this is a part of the whole, Christ can save you argument. Well, once you realize that this is happening, and like I said, you can listen to the works of Jerry Marzinski, for example, who isn't even a Christian himself, but he's a psychologist, psychiatrist who worked in the prison systems, and who interviewed and worked closely with schizophrenics, who has said himself these things, that these voices these people hear are clearly not coming from the people. They are separate entities with personalities that have powers, and he's seen things and heard things which are supernatural as a result of working with these people. And he'll tell you, yeah, these things are negative entities that are plaguing these schizophrenics. It's not a mental illness. But the point is, but when you realize these type of things, it gives context to help bridge that gap, as we're talking here in this show, to understand that we're in the middle of a real spiritual, tangible war with negative entities that we can't perceive with our eyes, but certainly influence us in ways that are just dramatic and terrifying. And once you realize you're in the middle of a war, the next step is to learn how to defend yourself. And then you'll discover the gospel and that Jesus Christ gave us that means to defend ourselves. Like most of his, I think it was 30 to 60% of his ministry when he was walking around was casting demons out of people and giving people the authority in his name to do the same. Because it was a big deal. Who is this person who can cast demons out of people? This is unheard of. It was amazing for the time. It's like this has never happened before. They flee in his presence. They are terrified of him, and all he has to do with a single word is tell them to leave, and they leave. They listen. And there's been plenty of witch doctors and shamans throughout the centuries who claim to be able to cleanse people of their demons through specific rituals and sacrifices and the right dance and the right music and all these long drawn out processes. And perhaps they do work for a time, but Jesus was pretty permanent and pretty quick and efficient, and it's kind of, the shamans may have been able to do it through excessive, extreme methods and needs as a temporary fix. But Jesus could just do it by saying, get up and get out. Now that's authority. That's power, And again, people can realize that they can have this authority and power over their own demons that are with them, that are using them, using their body for their own pleasures and means and gains, they can get rid of them by simply being filled with the Holy Spirit and using the authority given to them in Jesus Christ with sincere belief to tell them to leave and get out and show them where the door is, And, there might be some people out there who want to take that power away from you and say, no, you must come through the proper channels and authorities and get a trained, ordained exorcist to do it for you. You're messing with things you don't understand. It's kind of like, no, the gospel's simple enough. I give you the power to tread on serpents. Use it. It's simple. There's nothing much. There's not really much more to it. But that's neither here nor there. I'm not going to get into talking about the complex nuances of Catholicism right now. But yeah, I only say this through somebody who's actually used it and it's seen tangible results. I've told my story many times. Where I basically was dying. Out of nowhere, I became paralyzed, collapsed, and my vision started to go dark from the outside. And I knew I was dying. I knew my brain was switching off and I could feel my spirit being ripped from my body. And I saw the world spin and churn into that mandala effect people talk about on DMT, where they're passing through to the other side. And I felt like I was being dragged to the other side, by something I couldn't quite perceive or understand, while my body was paralyzed and my brain shut off. And I managed to say, Jesus, help me. And it left instantly. And I was back, and you can't come back from that. So when something like that happens to you, it's kind of like, well, what do I do now? I can't just deny the power of that and say, nah, that must have just been nothing. It's kind of like, it was pretty straightforward. I was being demonically attacked and murdered spiritually. They were trying to kill me, and calling on the name of Jesus in that desperate moment saved me. And I think that's what's meant when Jesus says, believe in him and you will be saved. That God sent his only begotten Son to die for us so that we can have life. So we can live. Because we have an enemy out there who wants to kill us. The devil wanders like a roaring lion, seeking whomever he may devour. And if you don't have the full armor of God, if you don't have any weapons to defend yourself, if you don't even know that there's a war going on, you're fodder. You're lion food. you just whoever he may devour, and you're one of them. That's basically how it works, and it's powerful stuff. And again, even just talking about the spiritual warfare stuff is enough to get people, because as I said, there isn't a single human alive that has not had to deal with demons. And a lot of people know it, but don't want to admit that to themselves, that that's what's going on, because the secular world denies the existence of spiritual stuff. It's like, oh no, it's all just in your head. It's all just mental stuff, And people are scared to even talk about their spiritual experiences through fear of being deemed crazy and sectioned and put on medication, They don't want to be judged by their friends and family who are staunch atheists, let's say, or something, or think religion's just for stupid people who are scared of death, or whatever, like whatever view they have. And so a lot of people are scared to speak up about these things, so they continue in their delusion and never really find the solution. And I feel like the spiritual warfare stuff is our best weapon to expose the darkness, because everyone's looking for a solution. Everyone has been plagued by these things, and of course they want to know how to save themselves from it. And there'll be plenty of charlatans out there who will want to burn sage and sprinkle salt around the entrances to your doorways and put an idol on top of a door frame or something and tell you to do the correct mantras so many times, and also go and divine and do a seance and speak to the dead and ask them what they want or something. But these are all just strengthening and opening up doorways even more. Ignorance just abounds with these solutions, because a lot of people don't believe or don't want to believe that the solution to their problems is just the Christian perspective, because they've all been brainwashed to believe you're an idiot if you're a Christian. Being a Christian is for stupid people. That's what they think and that's how they feel. I know that because I used to be one of them. And that's how the world brings people up through the secular system to think and perceive religion of that kind. These people who disparage Christ out of one side of the mouth, like I said, are going to tarot card readings on the weekend and doing the rest. So it's not that they hate spiritual concepts or spiritualism or don't believe in spiritual stuff necessarily. It's just that they don't want to believe in God and his son. There's a difference. And maybe God works all things bad for good. So maybe the people who get spiritually attacked and tortured, although it seems terrible and like a bad thing at the time for those being tortured and spiritually attacked, and although God didn't necessarily send those demons to torture you, you brought it onto yourself by opening up your own channels through your own free will. You know what I mean? And he'll kind of give you over to your strong delusions for that reason, because he knows, like, well, the demons only expose themselves and it only brings people to him the harder they push. So there's that: for a man to become wise, let him persist in his folly. That's an old adage, which makes sense, you know. And I believe God is kind of applying that most of the time. And I guess it is true, isn't it? No one could have told me God was real. I had to find out for myself. And I guess that's also, we have to be patient with people. And I'm not saying, like, I'm not saying, well, I have the key, I have the answer, guys. Talk about the clowns and you'll save people. No chance. It doesn't work like that. No, like, God brings people to him in their own time, in his own way, in his own timing. All we can do is plant seeds. And this is a strong seed, is all I'm saying. The clown thing and conspiracy and the spiritual warfare aspect of it all is a powerful tool that we shouldn't be wasting if we want to try and open people's eyes.
I want you to get together